AI is not going to replace everything. You still have to do the work. If you can weld, it's like you're a demigod. It's a technology that touches everything, or the company starts dying.
You can continue to learn, right, and evolve. And he started a business and worked his way up.
Once you realize this, you will not be able to walk anywhere with. If you look at the globe, it's in the millions. This statistic has never gotten better in my entire career.
You don't know until you ask. People just kind of take it for more or less granted. What is the wildest welding story that you can quickly share? Welcome back to the Lost Art of the Skilled Trades podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Brown, here live at ESAB in Denton, Texas. And I have Chris Sherm of ESAB. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's super sunny out. It's much different than New York and the cold weather up there, so it's good to be down here. Tell us your title and what you do for ESAB.
Yeah, at ESAB, I'm the global business director for manual plasma products. So I get the privilege to create new things with a team all over the world and bring plasma cutting to the market. It's been exciting. It's been quite an exciting few years here at ESAB.
Yeah, but I want to roll back because just to get some context about, because we were chatting kind of off camera about your background. You said about 30 years in.
You would never tell from the gray hairs, right?
Not at all. You look much
better. I look young, right?
You look young.
Not a day over 65.
It's welding that keeps you young.
That's right. That's right.
At what point did you say to yourself, like, you know what? I want to go work with my hands. When was that point for you?
Yeah, if I step all the way back, like my grandfather and my dad were very hands-on type guys. My dad, engineer type as well, but I did a lot of home stuff, DIY, right? So we did everything from build a spare garage on to projects all over the house. At one point, there was a hole in every room in our house, right? So like, hey, let's do this project, right? I'm sure it drove my mom nuts, but it was a training ground for me. My grandfather was a boat builder and a cabinet maker. So he built PT boats for World War II and then was a cabinet maker and worked with his hands his whole life. And so I really enjoyed getting time with Grandpa, who was from Norway, by the way. And every time he came to visit, he stayed with us for 4 to 6 months. And I got a lot of time in the garage with him.
So it rubbed off.
Oh, yeah.
It rubbed off.
Now, none of them welded. So I got introduced to welding at 18. And man, I fell in love with it. Didn't know you could make a real career out of it. I just thought, I don't know what I thought really back then. It was, I just thought it was cool. And then was apprehensive about like, can I make a job out of this? Or does welding really mean I have to dress up all the time in really heavy, yucky stuff and get dirty all the time? And I found that's not really the case, but I still love the art of welding, whether it's in the trenches or it's in aerospace or something like that. I love the thought of materials joining and putting things together to create stuff.
But what is it? Because many people ask, like, what should be my career in the trade? And there's over 100 different trades. Like, what is it welding wise that kind of just really kind of grab it? Is it the sparks? Is it just like, what is it?
The camera loves the sparks, by the way. But sparks in welding aren't necessarily what you want either, right? We all know that. Like sparks is BBs on the floor. That's not productivity, right? If you have a spark flying out, that's metal that's going not in your weld. So that's a whole nother conversation, a rabbit trail we could go down. But the camera loves the sparks. There is something powerful about like if you've ever had to cut or bend metal by hand, like take a hacksaw out and like, right, I'm going to cut it. Takes you forever. If you had to stick it together, you're like, well, can I drill a hole in it and put 2 bolts in it, right? And so you start thinking down that path. But if you can weld, it's like you're a demigod, right? You can melt the metal and it joins together and it builds something stronger than you could ever do with like a hammer and nails, right? So, and then the creativity aspect of it starts with the different materials and things that you can do with welding. And you start looking around all the structures that are done, bridges and boats and trains and cars. And You can't walk. Once you realize this, you will not be able to walk anywhere with a gun. Oh, there's a weld. Wait, there's a weld. There's a weld, right? You'll start to see materials joining everywhere.
I don't think a lot of people realize in our everyday life what welding, for like bridges and tunnels and everything in between, but people just kind of take it for more or less granted.
Yeah.
But I always feel that with tradespeople, they always get a sense of fulfillment, right? They like to point and they say, well, I did that structure or I worked on that road.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like that too?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is snapshots in my career where, I had the privilege to work on the Bay Bridge project in San Francisco. Holy moly, right? When you walk on that set, right? It's like walking on a movie set. It's not a movie set, but it's a work of art that's massive, right? To be able to have said I experienced that in my life is pretty cool. I've been to SpaceX facilities. I've been to automotive facilities. One of the coolest places I've ever been, in Detroit at a Ford factory. Man, wow, that is cool. You got robots welding all sorts of stuff all over the place, right? Another neat one was, I know I'm name dropping and all this, but Maytag. It felt like the productivity out of that place, and you're like, who on earth buys like 1,000 refrigerators a day? But that factory is making like 1,000 or thousands of refrigerators every day, and they're off the man. Wow,
it's impressive.
It's impressive. That's just to name a few, right? I've been to Newport News where they make aircraft carriers. Right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
When you see that and you look, and there's a little bitty human being, and the sparks, of course, camera low sparks, and the sparks from the welder. 5 seconds to hit the ground from where he's welding.
And what company is that?
Newport News.
Newport News. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's who builds the aircraft carriers for the United States Navy.
Yeah. It's super cool.
And that facility, wow. And then I've been to many, many other boat yards since that are all equally fascinating on different levels. There was two different aluminum boat manufacturers I've been to that totally different welding, aluminum versus like big heavy steel like you'd see on a Navy ship, but it's still a Navy ship, but it's totally made out of aluminum. Man, how do they do all that? And then how do they automate it? How do you get productivity? And how do you train the new generation coming in? And all of those challenges are what I get to participate in. And so, yes, I live the dream every day, especially when I get to go out in the field and work with the tradespeople and I don't know if I even like calling it tradespeople, right? Because it is a trade, but it's a technology that touches everything from the person that you would traditionally call a trade person that's welding to engineering to inventory and supply chain management. You would never even think of that. There's a ton of people that work in the supply chain management in the welding field, right? To purchasing and finance and management and you name it, right? It all boils down to we've got to manufacture and make something. And that's exciting. And getting to meet those individuals and those people and those companies all over the world, it's a treat.
I did an article or a LinkedIn post about shipbuilders and that they're aging out.
Oh, yeah.
I said that the average age was like in the 50s or mid 50s. And someone said, well, it's older. It's older than that. But there's this sense of pride, right? It was like a badge of honor to build those ships. Even like thinking about submarines or electric boat, General Dynamics, who makes the nuclear submarines, they need welders. I need thousands and thousands of welders with the contracts that they get.
Not just a little bit of welders. They need, like you said, thousands. This statistic has never gotten better in my entire career, right? When I entered the welding industry, the AWS said there was like 150,000 welder shortage. That's in the 90s. Now it's like, I think it's 300,000. I forget the number now, just for the United States. Now you're just talking just the United States, 300,000 welder shortage. If you look at the globe, it's in the millions. It's astonishing that it's a global problem, that we need people to do the work. AI is not going to replace everything. You still have to do the work. You still have to perform the weld. You still have to do the research to do the weld right. You still have to spec out that AI is not going to give you everything, all those answers, right? So we need those people, and we need people to start to see the excitement. I don't know, to catch the bug like I did, but we need people to see that, and not just in welding. Like you could say the same exact thing about electricians, plumbing, right? Start to name what you think of a trade or something somebody does manually.
Fill in the blank.
Fill in the
blank trade.
Yeah, it's shortages everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like there's a lack of understanding or a lack of, what's the right word? It's a perception. Oh, that's a trade, or no, I want to go to college to learn something. What are you going to learn? Right. Eventually, you have to make something that somebody wants to buy. We all want to buy stuff, right? I want to buy my new phone. I want to buy a new car. Well, somebody had to know how to put the phone together and weld weird materials in a phone, right? Everything from like the latest one, I think it's like a titanium outer box, right? Somebody had to still do some material joining.
I wanted to go back to what you were saying about the shortage and the American Welding Society. For people who don't know AWS, American Welding Society, I do track a site that they have. It's weldingworkforcedata.com. And I'm like a nerdy tech around this thing. And in now it says, and you were pretty much right, dead on. It's 320,500 welders by 2029.
Okay.
So that number just keeps fluctuating a little bit every single year. But it's interesting to see, like, it doesn't go down.
This is the number you don't realize based on what you just said earlier, which is there's an aged workforce. Just in shipbuilding, if you wanted to pick on that and say, hey, there's, the average age is 55 or 57 or whatever it is, it's up there. I'm up there, right? There, for most of my career, I've been the youngest person in the room. It only just happened to me. I said this to somebody else a year ago. It only just happened to me about a year and a half ago that I showed up to a meeting and I was the oldest person in the room. That has, in my whole career, 30-year career, it's never happened where I show up to a management meeting or a manufacturing meeting and then I'm the oldest person in the room. I looked around and I had to say it to the team that was there, like, whoa, you're the director of manufacturing, you're the VP of, fill in the blank all the way around, 5 people in that room. And I'm the oldest person in the room. That was a weird feeling and an astonishing moment, right? So the age of people as they retire, die, unfortunately, right? At some point, the good Lord's going to call you home, right? That's very, very real once you start seeing your workforce is 55, 60, 65, 66, 67. I've been to facilities where everybody looks like me or older, right? And I'm like, what are you doing to introduce the next generation? What's your plan? And it's astonishing how many companies, yeah, you're right, right? You got to pay attention to how are you going to attract the next generation in here? Got to make it exciting somehow. You gotta put your business card out there and go, okay, I have to train apprentices, or I have to introduce somebody to what I manufacture, bring it in through automation. You got to do something to get that next generation or the company starts dying.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point about the younger generation. And I always say Gen Z, and Gen Z's ages 13 through 28. And one of the reasons why also we're down here, why I'm down here, is the blue collar. I want to switch gears for a second. Is the blue collar tour that's coming down, Western Welding Academy.
Yes.
Who I actually saw them from afar in the hotel that I'm staying at. I saw their van, the big, van. I also had the chance, the pleasure to meet Tyler Sassy. He was on the podcast when I was at FabTech. Super cool dude. I mean, he talked about his career. And he talked about how he didn't finish high school, right? And he started a business and worked his way up. But he's sort of giving back by going on this tour, going high school to high school. Tell us what's going on here.
It's exciting. So I had the privilege last year of participating in the blue collar tour. I've been to Western Welding Academy up in Wyoming. And wow, what a cool thing they're doing. And as much as they're doing, like it's the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so many schools around the country that need to get engaged. And that's what the Blue Collar Tour does, is they want to engage the high school, the community college, the professors and the students at those facilities and say, okay, well, what if we brought this on the road show and carried some of that excitement forward, and then rewarded the instructors and the student? Man, they bring all sorts of gifts, and they engage companies like us. We have the privilege to kind of come alongside them and give away some merch and some products as well that gets the kids excited. But more important than just doing that is like introducing a person. Again, it doesn't have to be a kid, right? You traditionally think like a 13 to 18-year-old, what's their career going to be? But there's a lot of people that are in their mid 20s, early 30s, late 30s. They're going, I never thought of that. And I've always loved making things with my hands, or I'm always intrigued by how things work, right? I want to be introduced to that. So now we're actually seeing also not just the 13 to 18-year-olds, right? You're seeing some other folks come as well. And then it introduces them to the craft of welding. And then where can I do that as a career, and where can I get involved? And it just opens up the perception of just only the weld, but also, wow, what can I do as a career, and what industries utilize this art form, this industrial tool? There's lots of things you could call welding.
I love that they're going out there, and it's one thing to talk about it. It's one thing to see it on social media, but when you see it in person and you see the sparks flying and you see the smiles on some of these kids' faces, and I like that they do this in person, because I don't know of any other tour. Maybe there are tours and maybe different trades or something like that, but there's nothing that comes to mind off the top of my head that anybody's doing something like that. But when you roll in this big van and truck and gear, and you have a competition, and then you have ESAB kind of standing behind that and supporting the younger generation is just impressive.
I mean, we provide for the industry. ESAB has been around for 120 years, and we started off doing filler metals, and then morphed into like tons of other brands that ESAB now is involved with. But you think filler metals and power supplies. And so, yes, we want to introduce folks to the trade, but obviously ESAB's got products that get utilized to make all those cool things. So yes, we have an opportunity to engage, and we want to also expose our craft and our products to those individuals. And as they're entering the industry, and as they enter into learning, yeah, there's a ton to learn. I learn something new every day, both within my company and within what we get to do. But every time I go to an end user, every time I meet with somebody like you, man, I learn something new. So I love it. That's the aspect of what we do on a daily basis. And I love that the Blue Collar Tours like you said, bringing it to audiences all across the country. Closest thing I've experienced to that's probably like a welding distributor having an open house or something, right? That's, or if you you mentioned FabTech earlier, but getting to go to a trade show is, that's a huge privilege, right? To see machinery in action, making stuff. It's cool, right? But you'd have to like get on a flight and go to Chicago, or go to Vegas, or go to wherever these shows are. And now Blue Collar is bringing it to you at a very local, visceral level at a high school. And yeah, it's probably the first time some of these guys and gals have seen the craft of welding.
Yeah. I love that you can continue to learn, right? And evolve. You've been in the industry for a while, you're a veteran, but you're still learning and growing
every day,
which is really cool to see. And when you get around these kids, the mentorship portion of this, especially for somebody who is, further along in their career, I always say that mentorship is extremely important, giving back, right? Paying it forward, right? We were all new once. And there are some people who feel that, well, I don't necessarily want to mentor because if I give them too much, maybe they'll surpass me. But it shouldn't feel like that. It should feel like you want to give back to the younger generation.
Absolutely. That's true in a lot of aspects of life, right? I very much value And age has nothing to do with it, honestly, right? Um, I lost my dad quite a bit ago, and I lost. It's been about 10, almost 12 years now. And then my father-in-law, same thing, on my wife's side. So my kids don't have a grandpa like I was privileged with. So then I'm on the hunt, right? I look for what are those experiences where my own kids, it's like, and they're not going to get everything from dad. They got to pick some things up from mentors around them. They do. And a mentor doesn't have to be somebody that's got gray hair and older than you. It's somebody that has a skill set or is doing something like, man, I'd like to learn more about that. And then you start showing up. You got to show up, right? Whether you're 13 or 90, right? You can't sit in front of the TV or in front of a video game constantly and think, okay, I'm showing up. No, you're not showing up, right? You got to show up and just start learning, be present, ask a lot of questions. There's no dumb questions, right? The only not smart moment is when you just keep everything to yourself and don't ask, and I'm really interested in that, but I'm too afraid. No, don't be afraid. Just ask a question, right? And then if somebody's rude back and is rude about the answer, don't worry about it. Go find somebody else to give you an answer, right? Sometimes there's people that are rude in life, but I find that 99% of the time, no, people love to talk about what they do. They do. Ask questions, lots of questions. What's that you're making? How'd you do that? Right? What kind of welding machine are you using there? Is there a different process? Could you do that with a different process? How do you cut that material? Never thought about that either.
Yes, I do think you should be asking for help. Some people feel a little bit, I don't want to ask for help. I have nothing to give, right? Well, I have nothing to give. And you don't know until you ask. And the thing is, you can try to figure it out yourself, and there's value in that. But there are things that you know, and the things that you don't know hurt you. And it's good to ask. But I was having this conversation with Nate Bowman. Do you know Nate?
I know the name.
Yeah, I think he's weld scientist.
Weld scientist, okay.
On Instagram, and he will take time out of his day to help people set up their machines. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. Like, it doesn't want anything back. But he'll, on a weekend, he'll call somebody up, has a question, and that's what it should be like.
Absolutely. Being willing to offer anything, and really and even somebody like myself that comes in, or I show up at a factory and they're expecting something of me as an expert. I'm not an expert in what they make. I might be an expert in a few things that I'm bringing to the table, or I'm being asked about, whether it's, plasma cutting, laser cutting, welding, robotics, something like that. And they're saying, well, what could we do? I can't really answer that question until I understand fully what they do. So I'm asking a load of questions as an expert coming in. I keep putting that in air quotes because it's important to ask those questions. And so the person on the shop floor that's been pushing the button on the robot for the last 10 years, and you think, oh, he's just, or she's just pushing the button, or she's just operating. No, that person sees that weld or sees that machinery operate every day, day in, day out. They know, like when it does this little sound, they're using their ears. Sometimes you use more than just your eyeballs, right? You use your other faculties, and you're sensing things, and that I won't know that. I'm not the expert of that production line. That factory worker is actually the expert for what they know is going on. So I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and guess what? I'll learn a lot of things. And then boom, all of a sudden they're also proud, right there. All of a sudden, whoa, this guy's asking me my knowledge. Yes, their knowledge is very, very valuable, because then we can do something about the productivity. Or they'll say, well, it always makes this sound at 2:00 in the afternoon. Why? I don't know. Let's see if we can replicate it. Sure enough, right there it goes. And what's affecting that? Time and temperature, right? One thing could be electricity coming down I've experienced all sorts of crazy things where.
While you're thinking about that, what is the wildest welding story that you can quickly share?
I had one. It's not a welding story. It's a cutting story. I've done a lot of work on CNC plasma cutting tables and other CNC type. CNC is computer numerical controlled, right? But it's a computer that's controlling some kind of robot that's going to move, and that's where that 2 o'clock came in. And we had warranted 2 power supplies and a bunch of stuff because in the afternoons, for whatever reasons, power supply goes, right? Brand new. It does not, it should not be happening. What is going on? And it took until we were, it was like a Thursday afternoon. We thought, man, we fixed this thing. It's running smooth, it's cutting great. And the technician I was working with, okay, we stepped outside, plasma machine's running, CNC's going, he goes out, hey, I gotta get a smoke. All right. So I go stand with him. And then he hears the sound. Ah, you gotta be kidding me. And then we're standing there, we're like, what would have caused that? And then down the road comes this whole string of cars. And it dawned on us in a moment. The power surge, that company down the street they had, I think it was like 30 or 40 welders. All of them, the shift ended, 2 o'clock. Boom, they all turn all their machines off, and down the line comes a power surge.
Okay.
And if we happen to be piercing a hole, honestly, right at that moment could be measured probably in seconds, probably 5 to 7 seconds of this power surge comes down the line. But if you're piercing a hole every 3 to 5 seconds, guess what? The odds are pretty high. They're not in your favor. And sure enough, poof, there went another cost us. But we're like, that's it. That's totally it. So it's a stinking power surge coming down the line. That's probably the craziest like head scratcher that I've solved. And then since then, I've had numerous situations where I'm like, hey, let's just take a closer look at the electricity coming into the building. Take a look at the size of the wires, the size of the breaker. Let's take that journey through your facility. Okay, I think we'll be okay. Or let's look at some of this. As far as welding, I'd have to think. I gave you some examples earlier about some of the coolest places I've been. Some of the most challenging welds come into play more often around the term of productivity. And so there's been multiple situations where we take things from a short arc to a spray, or from a spray to a pulse, or from a pulse to a pulse on pulse. And that really fascinates me, because then you're getting rid of the sparks that are bad. The productivity goes up. Your penetration profile might be much better. The strength of the weld's better. The weld nugget or the weld profile might actually be able to get smaller, and the weld is actually stronger because you're getting a better profile out of it. I've had numerous ones of those over the last few years that have been very, very fascinating. And man, when you're sitting with a manufacturing engineer who's been tasked with lowering their cost, everybody wants to lower cost. And then this seems to come out of left field as a very out of the box. Hey, let's look at your process. What do we do to get more weld metal down, more pounds per hour down, and improve your weld profile, and improve your strength, and produce a better weld? Wait, you can do all of that now? Yeah, you can do all that now. That's probably been my most enjoyable, fascinating, and that's happened to me in structural steel, train cars, rail car business. Structural steel's huge right now. You could do a lot with that in structural steel.
You've seen a thing or two over the course of your career, and it's cool to see, just to hear that. And it's, what I get at is, most tradespeople are problem solvers. They like to figure things out. What you're saying, and figuring out what actually happened there, and you had to trace it back. That's problem solving.
Yes.
But you're a wealth of knowledge. Obviously years and years being in the field and being at different facilities, and showcasing what you can do, and showing kids what they can do with their hands is a really exciting thing. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd want to talk about? Anything welding or ESAB based?
Yeah, selfishly within ESAB, like we have needs across our whole company that have nothing to do with actually striking the arc, right? And having somebody even be aware of like, oh yeah, I could do a career in accounting in the welding industry. What? I could do sourcing and international business in the welding industry, right? It's like it's a whole different mind shift, and you could say that honestly about lots of different industries. But we tend to, as human beings, like focus in on like I don't want to, you know, I don't want to. My dad would be like, "Do you want to dig ditches for the rest of your life?" Well, actually, digging ditches is kind of cool if you're doing it from an automated standpoint. You see what I've seen? Oh, digging ditches ain't so bad. It's pretty cool actually now. But that was my perception. Oh, I don't want to dig ditches. I better go get a degree. Um, so I think part of what I'd love to discuss, knowing what you do in that the lost art of skilled trades, is like pick something as an individual that you're passionate about, even if it's just as an industry, and then say, is that something I'm interested in just being a part of? And if you are, then you're passionate about it. You're going to find a role. You're going to find a career, and man, it makes going to work so much better, right? Man, if I had to go to work doing every day something in an industry that I'm just like, that'd be tough. I love what I do. I love the welding industry, and I love getting to meet tons of people like yourself and industries and things that get made over and over again. I get to do that every day. So it makes my career fun. So I'd love people to do that same thing. Invite you into the welding industry, of course. I want you to come to the welding industry. But um, ask yourself that question, right? What am I passionate about? And it's not just the object that you find, right? If you're passionate about video games, right? I pick on video games, but dude, there's a whole huge industry around video games, and somebody has to build the console. Somebody has to build the controller. Somebody has to, right? Wow. Okay, wait. There's a whole world out there that's associated with that, and there's a portion of that's welding, right? So that's part of what I'd love to communicate is yeah, be willing to ask the question, be willing to look at not just the trade, but the industries that this trade of welding is in. We need you. We do. We need you.
Yeah, look, with all the shortages and the need, and we talked about obviously the statistics, and I love what ESAB is doing, what you're bringing to the industry and giving back is just it's amazing to see, and it really helps the younger generation really understand why welding is a great trade to get into. Chris, before you leave the show, where do people find out more information about ESAB?
For sure, ESAB.com, www.esab.com. No matter where you're at in the world, your website will recognize where you're at in the world too, and it'll help direct you. But if you wanted to know more about you're doing business in another country, you can of course go and do the drop down and find where we're at in the world. But we're everywhere in the world. So ESAB.com. Of course, we're on YouTube and LinkedIn and all the socials, et cetera. So you can find all of us there as well.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show, and I'm super excited about tomorrow, and having the kids come by.
I'm so glad you're here, Andrew. Thank you. Thanks for this time with you. I've really appreciated it.
Thank you.